Hello guys, my name is Jordan Johnson. I am an Apex Racing Academy driver and also driver in the Racing Prodigy P3 Championship, driving a Radical SR1 across various tracks in the US. And I am here to put together another lap for the Mx-5 Rookie Series, which is also being used to earn a golden ticket for the Racing Prodigy Series. This week we are at Circuit de Ledenon. It's proven to be quite a difficult track for sure. A lot of small little tricks and tips that we can give for you throughout this lap. So without further ado, let's get into the lap and continue our walkthrough from there. Our lap this week is going to be a 132.762, so quite a strong lap, but also very, very challenging lap. So let's take it through step by step and see what we can get out of this lap. So coming into turn one, I'm using the end of this wall and these cones as kind of my general guideline, turning in anywhere between the end of this wall and halfway down these cones. It's not super, super important. Main thing to focus on, you aren't trying to hit this first apex because you'll come in way too tight. So we're sitting about a car's width or two wide of that apex. And then as soon as we get in about past that apex, we're going to start lifting, starting to roll some speed out of the car. Super important here to just blend into that brake, pull the car back into the corner, but we're not trying to bleed a lot of speed out of the car. So very, very light brake, just pulling the car in. You can see we're not really even worried about hitting this second apex either. Letting the car drag all the ways out, then a little bit of throttle just to push it wide, and then some brake finally as we're getting close to that curb. You can see we start to get some rotation here. Minor correction on our end, and then immediately as we get down into that second gear, which is actually where this over rotation comes from, you can see we're up in third, and then we get that downshift into second, and we're getting that oversteer. That's where we want to start picking up that throttle to stabilize the car and rolling it through. Only worried about this final apex, can really run the car over. As long as the middle of your car is over this gray curbing, you should be fine. Getting the car all the ways over. Trying to take as little curve as possible. Here we knew we were going to take it, so we just took it straight so you don't lose any time. And then into this corner, not a lot of brake markers as we go through. I'm actually using this little divot right here. It's the best thing I can spot. So there's one divot and then a second divot right here. That's what I'm using for my brake marker. Hard on the brakes about there, so it disappears behind the A-pillar. Using a little bit of ABS all the ways down into first gear, then not trailing in very, very deep. We actually want to start picking up that throttle as we get the car nosed into this apex. Actually, well before kind of this little gray patch in the road too. That's going to be where you absolutely need to be up to full throttle. The car should be bouncing around. If you're getting a little bit of oversteer, you might be turning in a little bit too early because the car should be pretty much driving out for free from the rest of the lap from there. Then coming into here, really, really tricky to spot our braking. I'm actually using this little back area and then kind of by feel. Really tricky to kind of get a gauge for what we're looking at. But there's a little white line that I'm looking for back there. Also, kind of generally, once this green line starts to disappear on the left, there is a little bit of a tower here that you can use as a brake reference, but you have to brake quite late after it, so it's not the best thing to use So this is mostly by feel. You do want to brake earlier than you think you need to, and roll the speed into the corner. We're actually going to go all the ways down into first gear. But with that, as soon as we get into that first gear, you're going to see we're going to pick up that throttle super early to stabilize the car. Car really wants to over-rotate here. Then pick up the throttle to drive the car out of the corner very, very quickly. From there, you're going to just let the car drive all the ways out over that exit curb, using all of this entry curb as well. As long as those right tires are on the red and white curb, you're fine. You're going to let that car drive all the ways in. Very tricky corner here. Turning in at the start of this sound here. Then we're going to release in the middle of our turn-in to get more rotation. Let the car climb over this curb. Pick up a little bit of throttle. We actually pick up a little bit too aggressively here, but pick up that throttle really aggressively. Make sure the right-hand tires are on this red curbing here. Think about the limit is right on the right edge of it. Very easy to overstep. Then we're braking about this drainage, about halfway in between that drainage and this third drainage. Spotting those out, start our braking about halfway through. Relatively light brake considering how hard we're hitting on the brakes. Getting the car turned in, again, relatively late. It's going to be more of a feed in rather than throwing it in. So you can see we start turning a little bit early, but light, and then really aggressive on the steering input. Fully on throttle, all the ways up in that second gear, letting the car track all the ways out with the momentum. And then the turn-in for this left-hander is a little bit tricky. What I'm doing is as soon as I spot that curb right here, that's what I'm starting to turn in. You can see pretty much the instantaneous reaction. Curb, and I'm in. Only a couple of pixels spotted here, but it's not super important. It's just making sure you're not turning in too early because you can really throw the car off kilter there. Then as the car approaches to this exit curb, that's when we're going to start braking. Very light braking here. Car's very, very loose coming through. So you can see we're only at 50%. We're actually trying to use the ABS a little bit too, but just pulling the car in, a lot of counter steering just to bring the car down. We're trying to get all the ways down to first gear, currently in second, just tracking the car around quite late in the corner and just looking to kind of bring that car back onto the backside of that corner there. So as we roll through, wrong corner here, sorry. So as we roll through, we're spotting that late apex. You're gonna actually see, I'm gonna get my hand out of the way there. From second gear down to that first gear, you can see it disappear as we go through. Picking up that throttle as we get the downshift just to limit the oversteer. You can see we get just a little bit of a squirm on that exit, but not too much to worry about. Left tires, as long as they're on the red here, they're perfectly fine, just limiting the amount of distance driven. Right tires, as long as they're on the curbing, you're fine. And then very early braking here. I completely brake by feel here. There's not a lot of great markers. There is actually a marker that you can use of these boards here on the left. As soon as you reach that last board, you're going to be on the brakes right about now. Light braking because there's a lot of turning here. Over the curb, straight line it. As you have that straight, then you can get hard on the brakes using a lot of this camber here. You can see we're actually off the brakes quite early, throwing the car into this camber here very early on throttle. Let the car drive its way up. Left tires need to stay on this red and white curbing on exit, and from there, that's going to be your run out of the corner. But to run through our track limits, not a lot of track limits that we're pushing up on, but there are some that are quite annoying and very important. So we're going to run through those really, really quick. You roll through turn one, just as long as the left tires are on the track, we're not too worried about anything else there. And then rolling through again, not touching that apex as we talked about as well. Putting those left-hand tires up on that curb, that's about what we're looking for, but more concerned about that final corner anyways. This is where we talked about middle of the car needs to be on the gray here. This is pretty much the exact maximum amount of curbing that you can take. Near perfect there. Middle of the car over the gray curbing here once again. Then letting the car track out, keep those right side tires in the track limits. That's going to let you get all the ways in, tucked up to the apex on that exit or apex curbing. Don't worry about the exit. Don't really need to test it too much. Left tires need to be on track here, like we talked about, all the ways up to the apex. And once again, driving all the ways out, left tires need to be on that exit curbing. Then coming in here, once again, middle of the car. This is actually probably risky. This should have been an off track, but I did manage to get away with it. Middle of the car on the gray is all you're looking for. You don't want to push that too much. Right tires in the track limits here. All of this, left tires need to be, as far as I know, on this white line. It feels like if you took any more, you would get a slowdown. and right tires like we talked about on this red and white curbing. It does feel like maybe if you on the left edge, then it's a little bit too much. So use a little bit of caution. Keep those right tires on the middle of the curb, if not further to the right. Coming all those out, you can use a little bit of this curbing. Don't really recommend it. Not much use out of it. You're just running extra distance. Not worried about track limits here. Then bringing the car back once again into an important off-track section. Left tires on the red here, very important. Otherwise, you get an off-track. We can manage to get away with it there. And then right tires on the curb here. Managed to comfortably get away with it here. Left tires on the red and white curbing here. Throwing the car in. Left tires need to be on this exit curbing, otherwise you'll pick up that off track. Better than that, that is a lap of Circuit de Ledenon. Best of luck in the races this week, guys, and hope to see some good highlights coming out as well.